They have done it back-to-back. A remarkable feat because it's not a run-it-back team like so many of the others who have entered that rarefied air of repeat champions. UConn, the 8th program to have at least 2 in a row. Of course, UCLA had the long run in the 60s and the 70s. The Huskies with their 6th national championship, all of them coming in the last 25 years. They're tied with North Carolina on the all-time list, and only UCLA and Kentucky have more. An ethereal realm indeed. Glad to have you with us. Seth Greenberg and Jay Williams here. And 12 straight tournament victories over the last 2 years, all of them by double digits, never really pushed. Just a remarkable display of consistency and championship elite level basketball.
The most dominating 2-year run in the history of the NCAA tournament. The most dominating team, how they play, how they prepare. Dan Hurley is Saban-esque in his approach, not the number of champions, in his approach, and his team buys into anything and everything that he communicates to them. Just dominating.
One of 3 active coaches now with multiple championships, right? Like I said it before that I thought we were on the verge of watching one of the greatest to ever do it, with his ability to pivot and adjust and talk about 2 different teams. Last year was a completely different team than what he has this year, with some similar characteristics and some personnel. But now 12-1 all-time in the Final Four. That's the best percentage in the history of the NCAA. Okay. Also, when they get to the championship game, they're 6-0. They're 6-0. So just think about the dominant run that we've seen. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like it again.
They're the bluest of bloods. I mean, it's not just they're winning; it's how they win. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I joke around and say whack-a-mole, but we're watching the game, and Caravan's struggling. They get a loose ball, they kick it out. Finally, he knocks down a 3. You know, Klingon gets his 3rd foul. And they bring in Samson Johnson. All of a sudden, it's middle ball screen, boom, lob. Middle ball screen, boom, lob. Whoop, whack-a-mole, bam. I mean, it's just every guy embraces his role, does what he does well, and buys into the good of the group.
And following the game plan, too, because clearly they knew they couldn't stop Zach Edey. Now, they made him work. He wound up with 37 points. But this Purdue team, which was 2nd in the nation coming in 3-point shooting percentage, they didn't take a lot of them, but they shot
41%.
Just under 41%. They only got 7 3-point attempts off in the entire game and only made one of them. They dared them to score enough points in the paint to beat them, and they didn't come close.
Like Donovan Klingon, you're guarding Zach Edey man-to-man. We're not going to scrape down so he can kick back out like he did the other night against NC State, where they knocked down 10 threes. We're going to play him man-to-man. We got 10 fouls in that position. Fletcher Lawyer, we're taking you out of the game. Braden Smith, we're going to defend you with our size and our length. We're not giving you any open looks on the perimeter. And basically, they traded some 3s and some 2s, and they got out in transition and rebounded the ball. It was absolutely a pleasure to watch them compete. And Cam Spencer Hurley, because I've renamed him Cam Spencer Hurley. He's like Danny Hurley reincarnated. He's an extension of Dan Hurley. I mean, from his mannerisms to his intensity to his passion, I mean, like, he's Danny Jr.
We talk about this, Seth, and you and I have covered a lot of college basketball over our years together. The cumulative effect of death by 1,000 cuts. And I don't think people at home recognize that. Not only are their guards strong, tall, athletic, and long, but their sense of urgency to every detail. How I said it before, Mike Greenberg was joking around saying they could beat the Boston Celtics, and I was like, they can't beat an NBA team, but they sure as hell execute like an NBA team, and that was on sheer performance tonight. You saw every single detail. 14% is what they held Purdue shooting from the 3-point line.
How about the guard rebounds? Newton, 5 rebounds. Castle, 5 rebounds. Cam Spencer Hurley, 8 rebounds.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, we talked, the players got this done under the leadership of Dan Hurley, but because the coaches are the constants, for the most part, sort of, getting the news of the day in college basketball.
I wish.
Hurley joins. You mentioned he's the 3rd active coach with 2 championships. He joins Rick Pitino and Bill Self in that realm. But think about these names that he now joins with back-to-back championships. Henry Iva, Adolph Rupp, lesser-known Phil Wolpert at San Francisco, Ed Jucker at Cincinnati, also lesser-known, but they had 2 straight championships and went to the championship game 3 years in a row, I think. John Wooden, Mike Krzyzewski, Billy Donovan, Dan Hurley. Now, when I told him that yesterday, he started sticking his fingers in his ears, and then I mentioned it again when we went off camera, and he started going, bah, 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 bah. I don't want you. Well, he's going to have to listen now because he is in that realm. He's at the head of the table with the Hurley family.
I just want to go have dinner with the Hurley family now and see how that side seat table has changed to the head of the table.
He's the head of the table,
The head of the table now.
No, he's in the Hall of Fame, and you and I have been talking about that. He's in this moment in time, he is the best coach in college basketball. In preparation, in execution, they beat you in the half court, they beat you in transition, they beat you out of timeouts, they beat you in the glass, they beat you with their preparation. I mean, there is and the accountability, and you've been around them because you did a couple of their games. You know, I'm around them all the time. That's exactly how they practice.
Yeah.
Like
every day.
Every single day. That's the intensity that they practice with. Coaches, coach your team. Good players want to be coached.
You know, I asked him yesterday, guys, about a quote that he had at a press conference. He said, "We're doing something extraordinarily difficult and making it look easy." And I said, "How?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "We go back to the coach's office sometimes and we go, how are we doing this?" But some of the things you mentioned are a big reason why. And the other thing that Dan said, to his credit, was we have NBA talent up and down the roster.
Yes, they do.
Now, yeah, exactly. But when recruited and landed, maybe not. But it also is a testament to the development and the improvement of the players who wind up playing.
There's something about having the NBA talent, but everybody having the humility of what a team needs in order to be successful, because one guy can't do it by himself.
75-60. Let there be rejoicing at the Dairy Bar. Double scoops for everybody. Actually, you know what? Get yourself one of those big dishes and have 6 scoops, one for every championship.
Look, this thing is incredible. You know, we talked about the difference between Klingon and Edey. The collective responsibility of Connecticut is incredible.
Seth, 20 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. We talked about this earlier in the pregame. Something about having a veteran guy who's been in championship games before who can say, look, everybody, follow my lead. I know how to be poised in these moments.
You know what? I want to leave this score panel up for just a second. Typically, we don't like to sit on these, but we did this Saturday night, too. It shows their consistency. It's not just the points. Look at the other things. Guard rebounding, 5 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 8 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 6 rebounds from the guys in the wing. Everybody does something on this team.
So, by the way, Seth, the execution, right?
Things.
Okay. Zach Edey, you want to give us 40? We're not going to we're going to double you from time to time, right? When Sampson's in the game, but when Kling's in the game, we're going to play you straight up, and we're going to be like the boa constrictor on all the guards around. Considering that this team had 10 threes in their last game. 30 points, right? What's the difference maker? 1 3. 3 points from the three-point line.
They got 49 points from Smith and Zach Edey, and they got 11 points from the rest of the roster.
0 bench points.
I mean, like, it's
2 bench points, excuse me.
I mean, like, and that's the difference between the collective responsibility of the whole's equal to the sum of its parts, and obviously relying on Zach Edey, and the game planning of Connecticut. And deciding what you're like. When you put together the game plan, you can say, what are we going to give? What are we going to take away? All right, they decided we are taking away the 3. We're going to play the big fella, Zach Edey, one-on-one, wall up. You know, even if you had these big numbers, a lot of those were empty numbers. That game was over. Like, you told me about 5 minutes into the second half, you said over. Most of his points were after it was 15, 17-point game, when they were afraid to foul and put him on the line, and Klingon was afraid to foul out.
Remember, he got off to a great start. He went that long stretch in the middle that you're talking about. He went
5:47. He went over 10 minutes without scoring a field goal, and that's when the game was decided. Right. So what a great game plan. It was so fun to see a group of guys that invested in each other and found a way to be successful.
And to your point, here are numbers to back it up. Edey was really the only offensive threat that Purdue had all night.
You know, I still want to hand out flowers to Purdue.
Absolutely.
Considering the weight that they have carried over the last several seasons, losing the double-digit seeds, to find a way to ride Zach Edey, who still had a dominant performance tonight. What one hell of a year for Matt Painter and company. I mean, they talk about what they've been able to accomplish, and still to be here, all you can ask at the end of the day, Seth, is to have a shot at the national title. And they had a legit shot.
And we waited all season long for them to crash and burn. To me, watching Purdue all season long, it was like watching NASCAR. Everyone was waiting for them to go in and hit the wall, and they never hit the wall. Or they got pushed. I mean, early in the season, they lost to Northwestern. They lost to Nebraska. People say, oh, wait a second. The backcourt, they're not built for the NCAA tournament. The Big Ten doesn't prepare you. All those things were said. Oh, yes, they were. And they competed and continued to get better and grew, and they just came up against a team that is historic.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point, Seth, and we'll hear from UConn in just a little bit, the players and Dan Hurley when they go to the podium. But there are games in this tournament in the past that are lost. You know, my late great friend Bob Knight used to always tell me, dumb loses more than smart wins. But tonight is an example, a shining example. When you find an elite team, sometimes smart wins, sometimes better wins. And Purdue's a great team. Second best team in the country, I think. But they're not, UConn's the best team.
So right now, UConn, you better sign that check. You better sign that check.
There's two checks that have to be signed.
Because I'm saying if they don't sign that check, Kentucky's right there knocking on the door trying to get a call.
They're going to be there no matter what, but they're going to have to sign a check for NIL or collectives, and they're going to continue to have to take care of Dan. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think the state of the Big East, let's not really get into this, is going to be a concern because, what's going to happen to the future of college athletics? Yes. And do you eliminate yourself if you're not part of one of those Power Five, quote unquote, plus Big East obviously on the side? So, but in the end, they need to enjoy this. They work for it. If you see those guys and you see the love they have for each other, you see the coaches and how they interact with each other, you see the program and the buy-in from everyone. It's fun to see it in person and realize. I always say your investment equals your expectation. They invested to a championship identity and championship culture. RD, you lived it as you watched Saban and Alabama. And I'm not saying that he's won that many championships, but how they do what they do is no different than what Coach Saban does in terms of how he's built that Alabama program.
The thing I think that makes the comparison apt is the fact that over the length of time that Saban had them there to compete for a championship every time, and that sort of speaks about what you're saying with Dan Hurley in the future and the Big East. Right now, UConn doesn't have to be a unicorn to compete for national championships. The Big East is strong enough. The question is, in the future, is it? It's the future now. How many years down the road it is? But look at this in national championship games. I mean, they've been to the Final Four one time and lost in the semifinals in 2009. When they get there, they finish the deal. And when they get to Monday night, they finish the deal every time against an unbelievable Duke team in 1999 when Calhoun got his first one in Georgia Tech. And then let's try to forget about that Butler game. That was a terrible basketball game. But Kentucky, San Diego State last year, and Purdue the last 2 years. 6 championships in 25 years. That's preposterous.
Rece, I was at the 1999 game because I was
in Tampa.
I was going to Duke the following year, and I got a chance to work out against UConn because they were on my list. The way they defended, it's very Jim Calhoun-like. There's probably a reason why those two have an affinity towards each other because they're very similar, right? But
similar vocabulary, too.
That is accurate. But I'm talking about the attention to detail, and once again, like the digging down. Like I told you, Seth, before, walking out of those practices, you had claws on your foot. Guys were raking down. It was very much that Northeast style of play.